All right, everybody. I am here. Somebody hit me up in chat. Let me know that my audio is okay. I remembered to turn on my headset, so the microphone should be working. Thank you, Jonesy. Okay, wow, big day, long day. So you guys watched the video last night. You know that got a hold of the president of the amateur radio club that's closest to where I live last night, and he informed me that their semi-annual ham testing, which involves 2 8-hour days of training prior, and they do it last weekend and then the following weekend, that it was today, and that if I didn't get in and get a test, I was going to have to either wait until May or go find another radio club in the area that would do tests monthly or what have you. And I felt pretty good based off the couple practice tests that I took off of the ARRL, which is the National Association, for amateur radio guys and gals. So it was going to start at 9 a.m. today. So I did some studying last night, and woke up this morning, knocked out a practice exam. I got like 90, 91 or 94 on it. So off I went. Based on the conversations on the thread on Patreon, I didn't even know that you could try for a higher license at the same time, and then obviously that just makes sense. If you're paying to be there that day, and they are going to test you, why wouldn't you take the test? So showed up, and obviously I'm only getting 50% of the study prep because I had missed the first weekend. I showed up as a walk-on, and they're like, "Yep, no problem. Have a seat. You're good." And off to the races we went. So learn some stuff today. They put out some good information. They put out some whatever information. But I met some people while I was there. I'll talk about that later when we segue over to kind of equipment and the direction that I'm thinking about going and whatever. I got some study guide material, cheat sheet kind of stuff, but it's a closed test. So basically my takeaway was at the end of the day, during a couple breaks, a couple guys, came up and said, "Hey man, based on your input during the discussions and the classroom participation stuff, we think you should shoot for the stars." And I'm like, "What?" Like, "Yeah, dude, just take all 3 tests." So like, whatever. It's not going to cost anymore. So today I did take my technician's exam, my general exam, and my amateur extra exam, which is all of the current amateur radio licenses. I took them all. And what I found was that my photographic memory really helped me out on the technical exam because I had been looking at the study questions and I could actually visualize the question and then the answers, even if they were flipped between the practice exam or whatever. So my retention was fine, but it was absolutely monkey see, monkey do. Where I was not equipped was just my fundamental understanding of electrical engineering. And electricity, and Ohm's law was really, really difficult for me. They had a lot of word problems where the values change. So you can't, if they're asking you a word problem, you can't look at it in the study guide and memorize it and just blindly regurgitate with no concept of the theory. And so the general and the extra are absolutely heavy in radio theory. So you're not going to be able to fake it on those exams. So you would have a question like, if you've got an antenna, putting out, if you got an antenna and you're measuring it at like 12 volts or 12 watts, I can't remember, and you have a reduction in gain of 3 dB, what is your what's your other value? So because I wasn't just really, I understood, okay, got it. Ohms, anytime I see a resistance question, an impedance question, stuff like that, I should be looking for ohms. Anytime that I see power question, I should be looking for watts. Anytime that I see a current question, I should be looking at amps, like that. So I could make general associations, but without the background knowledge in that, it was really, really kicking my ass. So the only thing that they allowed us to do was, in our scratch paper, they allowed us to add these ohms power cheat formulas, and they're pretty cool. This tells you the values. E is voltage in volts. I is current in amps. R is resistance in ohms, and P is power in watts. So in the story question, and then it's cut into a pie like this for a reason. So it's a story question, and you try to figure out what value are you trying to get. So let's say they want me to know, what is my voltage. All right. So as soon as you identify in the word problem what you need to be doing, you cover it up, and then you'll see that there is a horizontal line and a vertical line. If the two values that you're screwing with, because you've covered one of them up, if the two values cross the horizontal line, that's division. And if the two values cross the vertical line, that's multiplication. So it takes having to memorize whether you should be multiplying or dividing these values to reach the sum. Then it's right there for you. And despite that, I still managed to screw it up. I also did not bring a calculator. You're allowed to have a calculator in the test. You guys should absolutely bring that. So, I'm doing your standard advanced test taking techniques and just kind of looking, okay, immediately discounting two because they're not divisible or multipliable. I got evens over here, and there's some odd values in A, B, C, and D. I'm doing your standard college test taking 101 Scantron BS, but you can't fake it. You've got to know. You've got to know this stuff. So, and then there's to add into it. Where is it at? The dB factors. So a change in 3 dB doubles your shit, doubles your output. So 3 dB increase in gain, you gain from antennas and stuff. 3 dB increase, you're doubling your output. 6 dB, it's not double of 6, it's quadruple. And that's the thing. It's like so they started trying to explain to me the math and this to this power, and it was like algebra, and like I'm like, yeah, nah, sorry, I'm not picking up what you're putting down. I can memorize this shit, but I'm not understanding the theory behind these math equations, and that's what bit me in the ass ultimately. And then 10 dB is a tenfold increase, so 10 to the 10th power increase or whatever. So yeah, it was really it was really challenging. Like the tech test was simple, but without any studying ahead of time, I would not recommend, unless you've done some engineering stuff, unless you've done some electrical stuff. You know, if you know what all the symbols on an electrical schematic are, and you can identify them because they're on a test, they'll have a schematic drawn out, and then they'll point to something on the schematic and say, you know, this is, and then A, B, C, D. So, what else? What else really kind of kicked off me? Q signals. Q signals are codes that started with, I guess, Morse, and they've transferred over into voice in the amateur world. So you've got to be able to know what, you know, CQ, QSY, QRM. You've got to know what that stuff is, and that's ham culture. That if you're not going to study prior to doing this, if you're going to wing it like I did, you're gonna potentially have some struggles because it's a new language. It's a completely new language. So, and then the other thing that I really needed to get smart on is wavelength in meters is your frequency in megahertz. For you military guys, frequency in megahertz, you're going to see those numbers and be like, oh yeah, got that shit, dog. Divided by, or 300 divided by, or divided by 300, whatever. And so you divide the hertz, you divide the frequency by 300, and that gives you your meters. The NATO armies apparently talk about bands of radio in meters as well. So they gave me this high-speed chart, which comes from the radio company ICOM, and it shows the freq ranges, and then it has the centimeters and meters charts here. And so there are rules to these. There's certain freaks that are dedicated, or you know, frequency ranges that are dedicated for just data transfer or whatever, and they will throw the question out to you in band. They'll be like, in the 2-meter band, you know, what frequency is you know, dedicated for, you know, whatever. And so my inability to take my years of knowledge of VHF low band frequency modulated, VHF high band UHF, and transfer that lingo over to the expression of wavelength by metrics, that kicked my ass a little bit as well. So the technical license. The technical license is, yeah, exactly. Elmer Tackwell says, yeah, dB's on a logarithmic scale, not a linear scale. Yeah, it's a logarithm. Right, what he said. So, so the easy stuff, like when must a ham identify himself? Every 10 minutes while he's chatting, and then when he signs off at the end of his thing. The way that is written out on a test is conducive to my visual learning style or whatever. So that kind of stuff. The you know, what could happen if you you know, discharge a lead acid battery too fast? It's written by the government. So let me let you in on a little secret. If there's any question on any ham exam that has what happens if or why you shouldn't, and then one of the answers involves heat or fire, that's the answer. Like hands down, I didn't find an exception to the rule. Every time on a practice test and test, I saw an answer, an available answer on there that said catch fire, explode, or transfers standby, stand alone, stand off, whatever. If you like throw a bunch of RF energy into your antenna and your antenna can only discharge at a certain rate, so just random numbers at a factor of 100 or whatever, right? So the antenna does 100, but you're putting out 200 into the base of it. It's like a turnstile at a concert, and everybody back here is just pissed off waiting to get in line. Well, in your radio line, the people that are pissed off and waiting to get in the concert, they transfer into heat. So you need to know that. So I could have done better. I got my tech license. I'm sorry, I didn't throw that out there. Preface that. I'm sure y'all are all like, oh yeah, this is his long ass explanation about how he failed and didn't get his ham license. No, I mean I got my shit, but then I also, boloed the general and the extra pretty bad. The tech is 35 questions. You can miss 9. The general is 35 questions. You can miss 9, and the extra is a 50 question exam, and you can miss 13 or 14 of those. So ironically, I missed 20 of the 35 questions in general, but I missed 20 of the 50 questions in extra. So I actually scored higher on the other exam. And again, that is a function of my test take ability, not true mastery of this material, which I'm kind of okay with because I absolutely understand dB gain. Like I get it. When you start talking about an antenna and whatever, but when you start trying to do these, word problems where you're missing a value, and based on which value in the equation is missing dictates whether you multiply or divide, and then you start talking about moving decimal points as well, it's easy to check a 25.4 when it should have been 2.54 or something like that. You get the right numeric value, but you're not tracking. And you've got to be a good test taker when you're looking at the answer. You'll see kilohertz and hertz, or kilohertz and megahertz, and in the past, just because I've been used to dealing with different values, I would catch if somebody tried to give me an answer and it was in kilometers and miles with the same value, and I'd be like, no, it's kilometers. But here, just because of the abbreviations, when I was burning through the test, I wasn't catching that they had given me some values in hertz instead of kilohertz and things like that. So I was told by multiple people there, for any of you guys that want to follow along, follow this path, that hamstudy.org is the shizzy. That's where you need to go. I was on the actual ARRL website, but hamstudy.org is a lot deeper. You can do flashcards. It tracks all your progress. It lets you know how many times you've had the same question. And then if you're consistently answering it, it puts that question into the mastery column. And it tells you, you've mastered 27% of the possible test questions or whatever. There's flashcards that you can print out, if you want to do that kind of stuff. So prior to me going for my general, sometime after the holidays in January or February, maybe, prior to me going back into the general, I'm going to go in and do specific study stuff, concentrating on those math formulas. I need to have a solid grasp on the theory of the electrical engineering piece, so that I don't get screwed over trick fucked, whatever you want to say, at with oh crap, he said impedance and not amps or something, and start plugging in the wrong formulas. So also probably going to do a little refresher on the whole metric system thing as well. I need to know milli versus micro versus kilo versus mega versus giga, and make sure that I'm moving decimals the appropriate amount of places for these answers. But all in all, really, really enjoyable experience. I did learn something. And fortunately, I didn't make a fool of myself in the greater forum. I asked a ham that had decided he was going to come out and hang out with me while I was giving Misha a bathroom break on one of the 10-minute breaks. And guy was an old Nam vet, and he went and worked at Langley after that. So, kind of not the same backgrounds, but that's what's up, And so I was like, yeah, man, I'm looking at getting I'm gonna have a lot of questions about equipment and whatever. Because he was asking me, he's like, yeah, if you go for general, you're gonna have HF. Are you gonna get a tri-band radio or what? And I was like, see, I hadn't even thought about that because I didn't even know that was an option. So I'm just looking at dual band mobiles right now. And he's like, well, you could run a second radio for sure. And so we started talking about the pluses and minuses of that. And he goes, yeah, the cool thing about the mobiles is you can have a really short, low profile antenna. And I'm like, he's like, what? And I was like, well, I'm kind of looking at the Comet 2x4, whatever, XR, ER, whatever. And he goes, longer antenna. I was like, yeah, I want to be able to, to communicate out of band with GRMS and FRS when I'm out with my family, and they're unlicensed operators. And he goes, hey, I just want to let you know that exact scenario that's illegal. You can't use a ham radio in those bands because of its excessive power over the limitations of the power. And I'm like, dude, all this stuff is user definable. Like, as long as I know as a licensed operator that I can't be operating over 5 watts in GRMS, who gives a fuck? And he goes, the federal government does. So apparently having a ham radio is kind of like having an automatic weapon. It's an automatic weapon. You can't just tell the ATF, yeah, Sarge, I'm just not going to shoot this thing on auto. I'm going to self-regulate my shit. It's good. We're good. No problem. We'll never use that auto setting. So sick burn. Here I am talking to y'all about illegal shit out of my full ass ignorance last night, or whenever I put that on the threads. This is my legal disclaimer. This is my legal disclaimer that you're not allowed to do that. Now, if I had a GRMS RT and had the right RS connector on the top, I could absolutely have that 40-inch Comet hard mounted to my Forerunner rack, and I could screw right into the top of a Midland or something GMRS, and then give out the multiple handhelds to the FAMs, and everybody goes off in the woods or whatever, and I'm just dual using the antenna. So there's nothing wrong about that, Fortunately, the dude, like I said, that I was talking to, he was like, the deal, man. As far as the gray area, if you're not emitting, if you're doing the spirit of the law, and none of your emissions are indicative of incorrect operation, then there's no reason for anybody to search, detain, question, do whatever. So my legal disclaimers out there. You can get a ham radio and swap the antenna to use it for GMRS or FRS if you so desire. your ham is also capable of manually dialing in those channels and speaking on those frequencies. So I think having the capability of the ham and the antenna to do that other thing would probably be beneficial in a bug out or a basic loss of civil services kind of environment. One of the things that I yes, there are Mikey, and Mikey mentioned that Bofang got in trouble for importing radios that had too wide of a frequency spectrum. But as far as opening up frequencies, this is another one of those. You can receive it. You can receive. It's not against the law to have a ham radio if you're a dude, without a license. You just can't key up. And there are many freaks in the ham band that are receive only. They're listening to all the marine shit. They're listening to all the aviation channels. They're not authorized to speak on them. They're just nerding out, listening, scanning freaks and listening to whatever. So the hams, that when I was looking at the mobile radios, most of the places that I was looking at online for radios, they all had another board for sale that they would install there that opened the radio up to Mars and the military auxiliary and Civil Air Patrol frequencies, which obviously, unless you're in Mars or Civil Air Patrol, you would not be authorized to use. But you could absolutely, just for another $40 for your radio, they would drop in this card, again, not against the law, and then your radio could monitor the Civil Air Patrol and Mars frequencies, which again, since those organizations like Aries and Racer or something, Aries is civilian, and Race, where is it? Anyway, Racer is civilian dudes that are on a roster, and they're using their ham radios for the government. Like that's some FEMA controlled shit, DHS, whoever. So they are sending and terminating traffic that is government, but they're using their own hardware and their own time to do it. And they used to license guys for that. They would have a certificate. They quit doing it in 79 or something. So you can't have a Racer, ID card or whatever showing that showing that you're part of that. And then the civilian side of that is Aries, and Aries is basically volunteer support to your community's local civil defense, civil disaster organizations. So you're helping out with, if there would be a loss of infrastructure, you're helping out your local government, sending messages back and forth to whomever. Due to the mountains and whatever around here, all of the fire and EMS all have ham. And we actually share repeaters with those guys. So Jeremy, you could tell Oliver that the FCC actually does have DF vans. They're going to have what the hell is the name of that antenna? They're going to have a RACES. Sorry, RACES is the volunteer that only serves government and ARES serves government and non-government organizations. Directional antennas, where is it? Where is it? I used to use the crap out of these antennas downrange for pushing video when we would set out unattended cameras and stuff like that. We would fire directional antennas back into the fob. Anyway, they have these antennas that look kind of like a Christmas tree. The longest side element is the back end, and then in the middle you have the radiating element, and then in front of the radiating element you have a shorter element, and this the back longest one acts as your ground plane or whatever, pushing the signal the other direction, and so you get really good directional feed with that. When you are using a meter to determine signal strength, you hook the antenna up to that, and instead of transmitting, it's receiving in a directional manner. It's the exact same way that we've been doing SIGINT, since World War II or whatever. You're taking cuts and lobs. A cut is a line of bearing, or a lob is a line of bearing. You're taking a line, and then you either move to another location or have another person take a line, and you intersect the two together, and that's the location of the rogue signal. So if there was somebody out there that was using their ham radio in the CB band, and they're not a ham radio operator, but they bought a ham radio and they have it modified to operate in the CB band, which is I think 11 meter or something, whatever. And so if a dude was doing that, I only use that as an example because my grandfather was absolutely a CB pirate radio dude. He had a ham radio with CB crystals in it and a 200-foot tower, 200-foot tower in his backyard. And he was talking, well over 50 miles in CB band. But if you do shady stuff like that and somebody reports, if it's a big enough problem, if your power output is stepping over into other frequencies and squishing other people's transmissions, if you're keying up and everybody in your neighborhood's TV is getting interference from your transmissions, then the FCC is going to come out and pay you a visit. And they're going to come out with meters and directional antennas, and they're going to, wonder where this signal strength is coming from. And they have it all mounted in vans, and they will drive around in circles or squares in the city blocks, and they will get a lob, get a lob, get a lob, get a lob, and they've got computer software that will throw those lobs on a GUI and a graphic user interface, a map. So they'll throw the location of where the van was and a straight line of where the signal came from, and then location of where the van was and a straight line. And where all of those lines intersect, that's where the FCC is going to drive up and pay you a visit. So that is the answer to your question. The strict protocols of ham and the fact that these old timers also, that's what I'm talking about right now, Mike. These guys run, all their radios are on scan. And so they're scanning the entire band for anyone that they can hear. And then they're going to listen to your conversation. So for, what started this and what interests probably most of you guys is, a communication with your family in time of emergency / tactical communications post loss of services, command and control, all these other things that we would normally do with radios. You just can't. If you encode anything in ham, if the old timers hear, the chair's against the wall, John has a long mustache, they're reporting you. because they know that you're trying to pass information that is encoded by your own method, and that is strictly prohibited in the ham ban. Um, so as much as everybody hates GRMS, I think uh, GRMS is probably the most viable for being able to be on the radio and not getting judged. Uh, ham and all of that power and all of that versatility and all of that, it is highly, highly, highly regulated. And so you're not just going to be able to pick up the mic and be like, what's up, Rubber Ducky, come back. Like it's not CB, it's not FRS, it's not GRMS. You are being held to a higher standard. Um, so that being said, if I'm way out in the middle of nowhere in a national forest and I'm using VHF with a flat antenna, an antenna that propagates flat, to talk to dismounted elements while I'm doing overlanding or whatever, as long as I keep the power down, nobody's going to hear, my wife telling me that I need to turn my tires right because she's ground guiding, and I've got the 4Runner all articulated and shit up on some washed out trail somewhere. So that's kind of my thoughts. I'm glad that I did it. This is something that I've always wanted to do. I'm sure that it'll kind of be fun, and perhaps I could be of service to my community or something in the event there was a civil emergency. But as a strictly as a tactical prepper tool, it's one of those tools that you're going to have to break glass in case of war. You're not gonna be able to practice your trade. You better have redundant comms to be living on until you can go buck wild with your ham radio. Like come find me, FCC. I got 3 million people from Seattle with no water that are all road marching down the highway and consuming every resource like locusts. Yeah, come fly your ass out here in a helicopter and come get me. Take me to jail, motherfuckers. Until you get to that type of situation, you've got to be kind of judicious in how you're conducting yourself on those bands. Kyle's asking, was I decided to become a ham because of hobby, work, or end of the world usage? This all goes back to my 4Runner build. I was building the 4Runner out, or planning for it, budgeting for it, and I was like, man, I need to get a good radio. And I've been told that GRMS has gotten flooded with all the derp that used to be on FRS. People are buying these high power radios for your kids. It sounded very reminiscent of Xbox Xbox voice chat, and so I wanted to get into ham so that I could talk further, vehicle to vehicle and vehicle to HT, just doing outdoor living, outdoor lifestyle, whatever you want to call it. With which, of course, everything that you're doing overlanding, it all feeds into if you were to have to bug out of somewhere. I think there's a lot of places in the country where people don't need to bug out. Where I live, I absolutely do. I cannot sustain myself here because I'll just get overrun. I'm going to get overrun by starving, desperate people that have children that they've walked tens of miles out of the fucking disaster area of Seattle, and they're hungry, and their child hasn't had water in over 24 hours, and there's nothing more dangerous than a desperate father, and I'm going to have hundreds of thousands of them on my doorstep. So I have to leave. I have to leave, and I have to leave through a gigantic national park in the Cascades that is bracketed by two highways that will literally be the highway of death. There will be a traffic jam from Seattle all the way to the Columbia River. So the Columbia River is a natural backstop. It's 94 miles through the wilderness to get to the Columbia River. Once you get across the Columbia River, the terrain opens up. The terrain is no longer channelizing people, so you can scatter and spread that load across a much, much wider area. So the only thing that would make me bug in instead of bugging out is if the event was localized. If I could hold out until C-130s and Chinooks are coming in from all over the country to render aid, to bring in medical supplies, to ship in food and water after the earthquake or whatever, then that's fine. I can make it. I can make it a week. I can make it a lot more than a week, but I don't think that I would have to start stacking people on my driveway in the first 7 days. I think it would take longer to that, but until the level of desperation was such that people were going to come up the driveway and they were going to kill me if I didn't give them water. And so I just need to kind of plan accordingly. 94 miles through some serious wilderness. So at that point, I don't really give a shit about my ham license or how many watts I'm pushing out. If we're on some ox trail that is on 1927 Forest Service map or something out in the middle of nowhere, and it's so rugged we're having to chainsaw our way through everything and ground guide the vehicles, technical crawling 94 miles. I'm gonna be happy to have that type of personal capability, personal radio capability that is compatible with dismounted radio transceivers. Thank you, Tom. I'm pretty happy that I got it, especially just how quick this came up on me. It was like 2 days ago. Oh yeah, let me start looking at ham radios. Oh, I should probably look into getting my license, and then it just snowballed. Like most things in my life, shit escalated quickly. So I'm glad I got my stuff. I'm gonna go back and get my general. I need to look at what HF is going to give me. HF was kind of like a taboo waveform in the Army because it's so hard. And once tactical satellite came on board, who the hell is going to put up a dipole antenna? I can pull out an emitter radio with a geosynchronous satellite that's directly over the Middle East. Because we've been there for 16 years now. I can whip out a SATCOM antenna. Do I need an azimuth and a horizontal angle? Nope. Pop that thing open. Boop. Point it straight at the sky. Key up my 5-watt personal assault radio, and I can bounce a satellite shot back to the States. No problem. No problem. I've never failed to make a bounce on a tactical satellite shot in the Middle East. So in that environment, the only people that use HF radio, the Marines, because they're poor. That's the only people I ever saw using HF in combat ever. But I talked to Special Forces communicators that had a very heavy HF emphasis in the Q course because it took if you guys have ever been to any military schools, once they get a POI locked in, changing the POI becomes really, really hard to do. And so for years, the old school 18 Echo communicators were trying to keep Morse code in there, even though there was no practical tactical need for it. And it was because Morse was that thing that was going to get you kicked out. And so it was like the gate, the badge protecting gate of being a successful 18 Echo in that portion of the Q course, the old, what we used to call old phase 2. So the MOS portion of the Q. So these guys, I talked to buddies back in the 90s, and they're like, studying for Morse code, they would fall asleep and they would dream and hear and like, and it disturbed them. I'd see them on the weekends and they were just frazzled and just burn out. I'm like, dude, what the F is going on with you? Like, man, I am in the Echo course and Morse code is kicking my ass. It's like, I heard him asleep, Chuck. I heard him asleep. But along with that was HF. And they still try to maintain that proficiency. So, like, if an ODA leaves Fort Bragg and they go down to Camp Blanding, Florida, the National Guard base in Jacksonville, and they're going to do a week of live fires, jumps, and whatever, blah blah blah. They're required to contact the base station of their SF group, which is manned 24/7. They're required to contact them back via HF comms, and send their sit rep of what's going on with the ODA. Even in the age of emails and cell phones and all that, they still require the SF guys to make a bounce to prove that they're RTO, so that he can maintain proficiency in these alternate communication scenarios. So based off of that, and I had heard war stories about if you're too close to the other station, when you bounce it over the ionosphere, the station closer to you can't even hear your HF traffic, but one hundreds of miles away can hear your HF traffic. And I'm like, what the F is HF going to do for me? If something's really bad, and Mikey and all my friends that are hams, if they're all bugging too, I don't even know which direction to point the damn directional antenna to bounce some shit off the ionosphere to them. And hi Mikey, it's good to hear you're alive. Yeah, I can't do anything for you. No, you can't do anything for me either. Okay, go back to shooting your zombies. I'll be over here shooting my fucking zombies. I mean, like, what is having that long range comms do for us? I'm saying that this tribe of Patreon people, as opposed to the old FUD. The old FUD is trying to give back, man. He's trying to get his glory years back or whatever, and it makes him feel like he's a part of something. And when the power goes out and those stupid cell phone towers, I will be able to tell the city managers and the mayor what the status of their water reservoir is. And that's like a big deal. And I don't mean to like take away from that, but that's why those guys like the these different bands and radios and stuff like that, because they want to be able to stretch their legs and see how far they can push their signals from static locations. Because that old man ain't bugging out. He ain't bugging out. He's gonna die behind that microphone, doing his part for the community and the country and America. He is going to die in place, sending updates about the zombie migration or whatever until he dies. That ain't what we in this conversation are all looking for out of this potential solution. So, totally ignorant of what these radios can actually do and all these new bands that I'm going to be operating in on the first time. I am going to stop short of saying, yeah, just get your technician and VHF 2.7 meter, bouncing off repeaters, simplex car to car, vehicle to vehicle in an emergency, and you're good. That's as far as the tactical prepper should go. I'm not going to say that until I put an HF on my car and I see who I can talk to and who I can't, how far I can talk to, what the limitations are. Am I waiting for a freaking meteor shower to come through so that it gives me some more resistance to bounce. Until I try it, I'm not going to poo-poo on it. Is what I'm saying. Because right now I kind of think I sound like uh, a shooter that says, I don't need no red dots, whatever. So until I've shot that pistol with a red dot on it for 5,000 rounds, I probably shouldn't open up my fucking mouth on the internet and talk about the value of red dots or not. And I'm not going to tell you guys that HF is crap and that having your general or your extra is not going to provide you some type of tactical benefit in your life, in your preparation plans for your own self reliance or whatever. I can tell you that that 2 meter VHF handy talkie stuff. It ain't as simple as being a walkie talkie to talk to your wife in the vehicle in front of you or something like that. In a non-emergency situation, you just ignore the fact that you think that's a really, really high-powered walkie-talkie, because it ain't. It's a radio that is connected to a network with a net control station and a bunch of dudes that would like nothing better than to report you to the FCC because you said fuck on the radio one too many times. All right, guys, give me a second to read comments. Benjamin Lewis. I could talk a lot about practical preparation and prepping. The problem is it's like you get a lot of fringe dudes when you start having those conversations. And I'm not saying that none of the 327 people in this little clan that we've established aren't fucking weirdos, because there's some weirdos in that group, I'm sure. But like there's an element of preppers that are like knife people, and if any of you guys are knife people, knife people are worse than gun people. Knife nuts are way worse than gun nuts. They're every bit as they're more weird and quirky, and they're full of felons that can't own firearms as well. So there's a different quality of person in a knife nuts versus gun nuts. I mean, hey, I got a Winkler on the wall right there. Don't mean I don't like some custom shit. I like a lot custom knives. I respect and appreciate the shit out of the knife building community, but the people that they attract, fucking weirdos. And so yeah, we could talk about prepping. It's just not one of those things that I wouldn't talk about it on an open YouTube video. Just because the people that would watch that video, it's attracting the wrong type of people to me. And then next thing you know, those people want to take a class with me. And I really am trying to keep as much derp out of my life. And I don't have a good way of vetting people. If I did, I would absolutely decide whether or not I was going to take your money based on whether or not I thought you needed, you were responsible and of good moral character. I don't want to train someone to be a more efficient killing machine with a firearm and then find out that person was just not a good person. He was just he was an evil man. So I got to watch out how many light bulbs I hang out on the porch, and the kind and quality of moths that come in there. But yeah, I'll absolutely consider it, buddy. I just want to. I'll probably want to keep it in this type of forum, not at large. So I would appreciate if nobody like went out on the internet and said something along the lines of, yeah, Chuck says you should have X amount of Mountain House meals and whatever for when the zombies come, or what have you. Because then somebody's gonna be like, what, zombies? And fucking dude's gonna be over here, bam, 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 $10 patron, and now he's in here just being fucking weird. And I just don't want to deal with that. If crap goes sideways tomorrow, I've got a couple radios. They just didn't have the power output that I was looking for. I'm probably still going to invest in GRMS. I'm unless I see a reason not to. I'm leaning towards those new Rhinos, just so that now that they've secured the beaconing features, and you only share that data with other encoded users. I'm much more leaning towards that, and the ability for my wife or my kids to key up on that Rhino, and for me to get a fix on their location in case I got to go get them. Yeah, I mean, Tom, I got food, I got water, I got guns, I got first aid, you know, and I've got plans too. Uh, I got some pretty good little fallback locations like right now that I can get to that aren't 94 miles through the wilderness. I mean, you know, Matt. Nah, I don't want to talk about that. Anyway, I got access to I got access to a fucking minigun within 5 miles of my house, so I can uh, I can definitely I could stand and fight if I need to for a while. Yeah, Mikey G's talking about HF and the fact that the propagation coming off of the antenna is such that it's a lot more directional in its waveform, as opposed to a donut ring of radiance coming off. So the direction finding truck has to get very, very much closer to the direction that you're firing your beam in order to pick it up with the DF antennas. They could still pick it up from the sides, but they have to be physically much closer than they do if they're along your line of bearing. Your boy AT had to take Morse code. Mm-hmm. Yeah, F3. I do. I mean, you could even go FRS. Um, so FRS has less channels. I think it's only like 12 channels. But then there are these like side steppers, whatever, and essentially it's a squelch lock. So you're broadcasting on the same frequency as other people, but there's a an algorithm that the radios do. So if you're on FRS channel 5, you have so many codes. I think it's like 20. So you could be like, baby, we're going to be on channel 5, code 17. And if her radio's on 517 and yours is on 517, nobody else can hear you. They could still DF you. nothing stops the signal. But nobody can hear your voice traffic unless they're on 517. So that was done by design because they knew that the FCC was only giving them this much bandwidth to make this above CB personal family radio. That's what it's designed for. Here, take your little cheap radios. We're going to go to Disney. Where the fuck are you at? Oh, I'm over by Mickey Mouse. Whatever. GMRS has more channels, I believe, than FRS. I don't know if GRMS has those same squelch codes that allow you to kind of personalize your conversation. But FRS in a house or in a neighborhood or whatever, FRS is fine. You can get up to they say a mile to 2 miles, but you could realistically, you can get a half mile out of FRS radios, unless you've got like just nothing but houses between you and that person. GRMS bumps that power up, and so different freak spectrum, and most of the high-end GRMS radios that they sell now have FRS in them as well. They run the whole gamut. So you've got the 12 FRS channels with the 20 lockout codes per, plus the GMRS. So you could run a lower power, less chance of being DF'd and heard. You could run lower power in a bug-in situation around in your house, whatever, using your own lockout codes. And then if you had to go mobile, you could jackrabbit over to GRMS and bump your wattage up if you're running separate vehicles, or if you're leaving the FAMs and then going out on foot and scouting the route ahead of you and then coming back and moving the vehicle forward. A little bit of like we call that successive bounding overwatch, successive bounds, as opposed to bounding overwatch, alternating bounds. And successive bounds, the support element never gets in front of the lead element. So they just move up on line, and then the lead element takes off. You do that a lot when you've got like attached heavier weapon systems like machine guns and snipers and bazookas and stuff, rather than passing the supporting weapons off to the other person every time you bound. You leave your trail element with your supporting weapons, and as soon as they can no longer support due to distance, they start to lose it. These guys lock it down, and then you move up your support line, and then you creep forward again. And you can do that with your vehicle. You can do that with a scout bike. You can do that with a mountain bike. And get out there in front of your family, check the conditions of the road. Are there down power lines? Are there any fallen trees? Is there any potential ambush? Whatever. And then, crowds of angry, pissed off people. And then you bring your vehicle with trailer and all the gold and jewels and preciousness, mountain house meals and water purification filters and, cans full of, 6.5 Creedmoor and 62 grain TSX, and you bring all that shit forward and then bound again. GRMS would be really good for that. Evil Trib says every hobby big enough is going to have some weirdos. Yes, but I think that the knife community, I think they've got a mean capita of weirdos that is at a higher population per capita than other people's. Do I know how many times I'm allowed to say fuck before they call the FCC? Guess we're gonna find out. I'm gonna I can start keying up as soon as I drop in the database. They have to snail mail my examination and application and all that, and then the FCC emails me back my certificate on a PDF. There's no card anymore. They have a 5x7 printable and then a mini. I'm going to laminate my mini and put it in my wallet because hams are exempt from hands-free law. I don't know if that's nationwide or if that's just here, but if for some reason I get caught, I get flagged and pulled over, and officer said, "Hey, you drove by it. I saw you had something in your hand. Whatever. You're in violation of hands-free law." You can show them the mic on your mobile in the car and your ham license and say, "Hey, sorry, I'm exempt under amateur radio rule. Whatever. Blah blah blah." Elephant Rider says he's got a buddy that's a radio guy, and he would approve of the rhinos. Like, yeah, I'm like really surprised. Like they kind of like went in the Black Hawk category, in 03, 04, 05, and I was like, Rhino, F, little bunk ass FRS radio with some damn potentially devastating data information about where the hell I'm located. Yeah, I want one of those like I want a fucking dick growing out of my forehead. And then I looked at I scrolled and looked for something else, and I saw it and I started reading the specs on it, and then I went and saw some YouTube reviews on the new rhinos, and I was like, ooh, man, this thing's got some stank on it. So a lot of functionality. They've got some that have built-in cameras. They're Bluetooth now, so you can sync them to your phone and do something. So no, man, my AT's asking about my Garmin Varia bicycle heads-up display, and have I had a chance to mess with it anymore with my Phoenix? No, that kind of took a back seat. I don't have a whole lot of time, but I am going to try to reach out to Garmin and ask for a sit down during shot, and then talk about some potential business development stuff with those guys, to kind of consult with them on some product development ideas and potentially militarizing or getting some more tactical flavor to some of their accessories. Like, hey, look, this is what I was able to do with just the crap you guys have now. Let's talk about y'all writing the waveforms and making the software and making the human interface, making it better. And we'll see what they have to say. Hopefully, cold calling a company and trying to find the right guy to say, yeah, I'm going to be at SHOT, and yeah, I'm responsible for this, and yeah, I would like to meet you Wednesday at noon. That's a part of my business model that I have no experience with. But I think it would pay huge dividends for Garmin. I mean, every other company that I've given my intellectual property to has gotten rich off of it. So, I'm batting 1,000 right now. I don't think I've told anybody to build something a certain way, and they built it and nobody wanted it. And so, and I guess I got to make a portfolio that like lays that out, a PowerPoint presentation showing all the collaborations that I've done with other businesses, whatever, and bind it up and take it to a print shop and have it done, nice, and present them with this business plan or whatever. I guess that's what like real business people do, not like old retired guys that shoot guns and teach other people to shoot guns. Are we going to do a primary and secondary 70 centimeter frequency? Let me get a little time listening, learning the culture. It's kind of like being a new guy on PNS or Light Fighter. Like, I just got to get on the net, check in, and shut up and just listen, and then follow the cultural norms of the radio nets that I have access to. I do like the fact that we've got a lot of hills around here. We got repeaters for days, man. The repeater list here is insane. And I was told that they are all hard sites with generator backup. So that's kind of cool. Yep. Evil Triple says that in addition to showing your credentials to the law enforcement officer, that you need to acknowledge, his allegations that you were using a device handheld and not hands free with 10-4 Smoky CB is exempt. It's Covey. I said company for years, AT. It is Covey, a covey of birds, and Raven was his call sign. So apparently the other people on Baker team were potentially dove, swan, eagle, whatever. And the leader of this covey of birds, let's ignore the fact that they're different species and wouldn't fucking be in the same covey. The covey leader was Baker team leader, Colonel Troutman. So now you know. Covey leader, Raven. Talk to me, Johnny. Yeah, we talked about Echolink. Echolink. As a matter of fact, we did a check-in this morning. They had an area check-in at 9 a.m., which is when we started class, and one of our instructors whipped out a tablet and fired up the Echolink, and then came over the net and checked in his call sign and announced that he had a class going on with about 30 students or whatever. The net control guy cleared the net and said, "Hey, we're going to give this guy priority because this call sign priority because he's teaching ham right now." And the whole class, we all chimed in, "Hi," over the thing, and then they congratulated us. Congratulations, that's your first time, speaking over the air in ham. And I'm thinking to myself, first time you know of, but. So gear, I'm really liking the reviews on the Kenwood stuff. The ICOM stuff is got some good stuff going on too. ICOM wasn't as quick to jump on board with APRS. APRS is essentially ham rhino shit. So when you key up, if you've got a radio that has no GPS in it, you can hook it to a GPS and it will transmit your GPS data to other stations. And then the receiving side will get azimuth, distance, grid coordinates, lat long to the person that keyed up. The Kenwoods now are almost all coming GPS, and the ICOMs by and large are not, because ICOM was using its own waveform. They were DRS or DMS or something. ICOM wanted to go a different way. And I was reading reviews of these radios, like, this is the best ICOM, this is the best Kenwood, but the dates were like back in 2013, 2014 on like ham forums. and they were speculating back then about who was going to be the winner. This shit was like some Betamax VHS shit, probably a little bit before some of y'all. And Betamax died, and it sounds like the direction that ICOM wanted to take the industry, they rejected it, and they are across the board kind of getting on board with APRS. It's automated packet relay system, packets of information, data transfer. So Kenwood has an HT that has that HT is handy talkie. That's your small 2 meter, 7 meter VHF, UHF dual band handheld radios. So Kenwood's got one that's got a color display that is dual band, that has APRS, so it can send me that packet information if I give it to somebody. And they get hurt, they can just key, and it'll send me they don't have to transmit or talk on it. They just key it, and it beacons them to me. And then the Kenwood vehicle radio that I'm looking for, the 710G, has a detachable faceplate, which I can put next to my tablet. And then I believe I can export the APRS data out to the tablet that's going to have like my Gaia GPS or whatever my GUI is for navigation, and it will populate the pings of all the APRS channels that are geographically in range. If my radio can hear it, it just drops them on the net. Obviously, if they have APRS turned on, they can shut it off and be like, I don't want you to know where I am. Eat a dick. And but yeah, if they any APRS activated radio will show up on those two. So I've liked what I've heard so far, and the majority of the head-to-head comparisons between the ICOM HT and the Kenwood HT. The ICOM is a 51 alpha. The ICOM and I think the Kenwood HT is a 74. Kenwood's whipping its ass on the mobile radio. Top end Kenwood, top end ICOM. Kenwood's whipping its ass. So that's the direction I'm going. And then with a Comet 40-inch antenna, which I'm looking at, going back to what you said, Mikey, in the Patreon thread. Comet makes a 2.5-inch clampy style bracket that you can mount either on the side or on any cross member of a roof rack. And then all I would need to do is manufacture the plate and insert it between the bracket and the screw-in base of the antenna. So I was looking at that. I was looking at racks on the mounts on the my CBI double swing outs I'm going to put on there. I've seen guys that have done that. Obviously, I've seen the stuff up front, the fender mounts that'll mount, go there in the gap in the fender where the hood is at and put it directly over the top of the fender. But I'm both reading on the internet and hearing from the instructors today. When you start messing with an uneven ground wave like that, you've got metal fender on one side and then kind of nothing on the other. It redirects, and you'll get better reception and transmission in certain directions, and your donut will become elliptical if you don't have a good flat ground plane. And all of the old timers there, they all said you need to get that whip directly center mass of your roof, not towards the back, not towards the front, not offset to one side. You need to put it in the center of your roof. So I just got to look and see what that what does that mean? For cable management more than anything else. I can put it anywhere I want to on the front runner rack, or I can direct screw it to the car, which is what most of them are suggesting. Ha! Yes, HD DVD versus Blu-ray. I have a high def DVD of 300 when it came out. Oh, hold on for a second. Yes, dear. No, I didn't see that you texted me. Hold on. What did your text say? Okay. Will do, baby. Sorry about that. So yeah, I had an HD DVD of 300 before I knew what HD DVD was. I just grabbed it in Walmart when it came out, and then realized it wouldn't play in my DVD player because I didn't have a HD DVD. Betamax was in fact superior to VHS. That's a fact. I believe you're correct. HD DVD was initiated by Toshiba. Video cassette recorders, VCRs, they predated DVDs. Jared, they used to have two formats when they first came out. Betamax, which was a Sony deal, and then VHS, which I believe started with JVC. And the VHS tapes were larger, and they could hold more info. You could have up to 6 hours of programming if you lowered the quality. But on the highest level of quality, the Betamax tapes, which at their max could only hold about 4 hours, or maybe it was 8 and 6. It was 4 and 6 or 6 and 8. But when you bump them up into high quality, where they could only record like 2 hours of information, the picture quality and everything on the Betamax, the Beta, was just far superior. The pause, fast forward, all of that was a lot cleaner in its movement. So when VCRs first came out, y'all, you couldn't see the screen when you hit fast forward. It actually went blank and started spinning the tape, and you had to just like count 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, stop, play, and then you'd watch the tape. Nope, I haven't gone far enough. You know, I want to see when Rambo jumps off the mountain. You know, whatever. Stop. Hit the fast forward button, and you could hear the gears in there spinning the tape, and you count to another 7 or 8 seconds, and then stop, play, and that's how you did it. I remember when the first VCR came out that had actual picture. You know, the shit's like fucking going. It was amazing. Like that was like fucking putting a motherfucker on the moon. It was being able to actually see your image as you were fast forwarding so that you could stop. Well, I hope your support to our little clan has been worth that little nugget of the formats of video cassette recorders. Boy, we went down a rabbit hole on that one. No, I've got it in the back. I'm sorry, this is YT. He's asking about that TRI 148 clone. That thing's coming out. When I get my ham net set up, and now that I know the frequencies and everything, I didn't have enough knowledge about the the spectrum, the frequency spectrum here, to really, I didn't want to start putting in random numbers into that TRI and end up someplace that I didn't want to be. But I am absolutely going to put some fresh batteries in there and put on my clip popper VHF antenna and dial in my repeater freak that they're going to give me from the club, and I'm gonna hit the repeater with that thing and talk to my other radio or something. Have my other radio on downlink and just kind of hear how that thing sounds. So yeah, now that I'm a licensed ham, I'm gonna stretch the legs on that TRI a little bit and see what that thing can do. But it's a big, heavy radio. I mean, our military radios are heavy because they're ruggedized, and that radio was built to feel and look just like an emitter, but it's not an emitter. It doesn't do what an emitter can do. So I'm going to experiment with, all right, Kenwood this big, TRI this big. Am I getting anything out of this size? Does it sound clearer? When I look at the specs, can I crank the power up higher than I can with the Kenwood or whatever? And if I can't see some spectral or power or reception and transmission quality reason why I would want to carry that big son of a bitch, maybe battery. Maybe if the battery, the actual 4.8 amp emitter batteries that thing takes, maybe if the batteries last longer, because the Kenwoods with that color display and all that, it's like up to 6 hours of talk time. So that's not a lot. That's having to carry an extra battery with you for a full daylight's romping around until you can get back to juice and plug back in. And the replacement battery, I think, is like $90 or something like that. So I'm gonna have to get like a couple batteries. And then, like most of these civilian companies, they make their because they got back face batteries, they make their stupid docking stations where you have to dock it with the radio. I don't want to dock it with the radio. I want 4 batteries and charging 2 of them while I'm using 2 out in the field. But there's no way to get it to press the springs and make contact and charge. I mean, I guess I could stuff some shit paper down in there, make a wedge or something to hold the battery up against the contacts. But the Kenwood base station charger is designed for you to dock the radio. It's a docking station charger, which drives me batshit crazy. Yeah, Tom, the radio club here is really, really cool. I downloaded an app while I was in class. Repeater Finder. Apparently, this is a nationwide GUI that you can query repeaters next to you. It'll tell you whether they're data, whether they have data or Echolink or whether they're touching the internet or whether they're capable of data transfer. And then it'll give you all the repeater information. So that's kind of cool. Switching gears back to the prepper thing, I owe it to myself to do a good map reconnaissance of my primary and alternate routes that I'm looking if I have to start traveling eastward, and identifying repeaters along the way if there are any, and then identifying gaps where I just know, all right, once I go over this mountain ridge, I'm no longer going to be able to bang that repeater, and I've got 45 miles where I'm not going to be in repeater range of anyone. So all the radios need to go on simplex and just talk line of sight. Yeah, YT, I would concur with that. That radio is essentially, a Bofang style capability just in an emitter body, which is fine because I've got all kind of emitter accessories. That's one of the things that excited me about it. So I've got different band antennas for it. I've got handsets. I can integrate it in with my Peltors or my Invisio earpiece. I've got push to talks that cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars in various lengths, coiled, uncoiled, short, long. So that's and it runs off emitter batteries, and emitter batteries are 4.8 amp. They're 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 good to go, man. Um, a brand new emitter battery will last. It'll last a solid 8 hours when you're pushing at 5 watts. These little radios, though, they'll push up to 20. You're allowed to push up to 20 watts on these VHF line of sight bands and repeater bands. So that's the big. I'm sorry, you push 50 watts. That's the big attractiveness of the ham. It's just power, man. These radios just have power, and they're empowered to have that power because we're licensed by the FCC and we understand the rules and we agree to play by those rules. So they allow us to have toys that are capable of causing a lot of interference and really dorking up the IR spectrum. I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty sure that my radio that I'm looking at, the 710G Kenwood, has the ability to do that kind of repeater thing that you're talking about. I'm also, depending on what I learn about HF, and the HF antennas, because they're lower megahertz, uh, they're longer. The vertical pole antennas, they're long, and so if I mounted one on the truck, it would have to be probably down on the roll bar or down on the fold out and coming up, and it would stick over the top of the vehicle several feet. And since I have double batteries in the base camp, I'm wondering what it would take to put a DC uh, inverter um, and mount an antenna mast, removable antenna mast to the base camp, and set up an HF base station in the base camp. I'll look into it. I might throw an HF radio in the front with me. I might say, nope, I don't want the 710G. I'm going to wait and buy a tri-band radio and have HF thrown in there. I don't know what I don't know yet. So it's still too early on the gear wise for me to be making a decision about exactly how that's going to look. Yeah, F3. That's one of the things I did not uh, grab in my travels. I've had one because we used to jump rhinos. I had to jump them in skydive school because they wanted to know where we were at in case we pancaked in. And we had 2-pin, civilian 2-pin jack, which the HTs use, the FRS uses. And we had that coiled to a PTT to Nexus. And we would jump the radio in a pouch on our parachute and then route the coiled cable in behind our harness and jump with it plugged in so we had comms as soon as we came under canopy or whatever. but I didn't grab one. I didn't get one. So I know they're out there. I have to call Atlantic Signal or TA or somebody and tell them to give me one. That was one of the things that I did not like about the Rhino. The Rhino did not have a traditional 2-pin. It had a single pin to do an inline mic like this headset's got. So it's got a single headphone jack, and they expect you to just have the microphone in series. Yeah, we talked about dipoles today. One of the instructors pulled out a video on his phone where he had a compressed air, like tennis ball launching potato gun type looking thing, and they were launching wire for a line for raising antennas, and they were getting it like over 300 feet with this freaking Carl Gustav looking piece of PVC pipe. I was like, man, I used to put my jungle antenna in the tree with a wrist rocket. Y'all motherfuckers took it way to the next level. You know what I mean? So, all right, guys, we've been on here for about 1:37. You need to start wrapping it up. I got to go see my wife. I haven't seen her all day. She's hiding out in the back. But just wanted to give you guys a few pointers, some areas to focus on if you feel like you want to do this. I mean, I can't, in terms of a sense of accomplishment, less than 2 days of my life and $15, and I've got a ham radio license now, you know, and if I had studied more before I spent the $15, I could have had $15 and been a general or an extra, you know, but I just showed up and took a swag at it, and you know that's what happened. So you know, I missed 15 questions on the extra. No, I missed 20 questions. Excuse me, on the extra exam, and I needed 13, no more than 13 or 14. So you know, I was less than 10 questions away from passing the damn thing, and it was asking a lot of craziness. Cutting antennas to length, measuring antennas. Hey, if you want a quarter wave at this many megahertz, how long is your antenna going to be? And you got to go in, okay, quarter wave, do this, times 39, blah, blah, blah. And I hadn't studied any of that. And so I can absolutely tell you guys that I'm you know, I was pretty good in math at school. I didn't take advanced math in high school. It wasn't required in Louisiana. I took Algebra 1 and geometry and business mathematics. So I never did any calc or trig. But you know, I feel okay about my performance today. I mean, I went there to get my license. I got a license. You know, I could drop a radio in my car. Oh, that's another piece. Mikey was talking about how he used to do installs when he was in EMS. There is not a single amateur radio retail store in the entire Seattle area that I can call about doing a proper install. So if I wanted to drill this thing through the roof, route the cables on the inside, you know, running this radio, faceplate here. It's not just a matter of pulling up carpet and paneling and hiding the wires. They've got to ground this son of a bitch. And I've got dudes talking about like, yeah, man, you need to band the doors, you need to band the hood, you need to band, you know, everything. And they're talking about steel flat braided cable for ground. And it's talking about like, find the existing bolt like in your door. He said, then you need to get the wire brush, you know, attachment on your drill, and you need to remove all the paint off your car, and then put it in under the bolt, and then paint that, and then seal it. And you need to do that on both sides of every door. and your hood. And I'm like, whoa, man. That sounds like a little bit out of my skill capability. He's like, yeah, dude, if you ground the shit out of this thing, the whole car is a ground plane. It's awesome. And I got to realize I'm talking to guys that work at Microsoft and Boeing and places like that. So like, I'd say 3/4 of the room were like full blown, genius nerds. But there ain't no Billy Bob's ham installation place that I can trust that these guys are going to do this. My install is probably going to have to be a home install unless I can find a law enforcement supply. I haven't looked there, but LE supplies that do like the car retrofits and put the gun racks in, stuff like that, they're going to have a commo dude. And that guy's going to be used to putting VHF antennas, moving the antennas around so they're not getting interference, checking with a directional watt meter, to ensure that the SWR coming through the line is good and you're getting, the transmission power that you think you're supposed to, all that stuff. I'm absolutely willing to throw money at that problem and have somebody that knows what they're doing do it rather than me screw it up. But I just can't find that guy right now. So the search will continue for me to find a good install person. Yeah, Trib, they said absolutely that you should ground it to the ground line where the battery's grounded. That they said that's like your first, your primary ground is you're running the ground all the way through the firewall up into there and then terminating it into the frame on the same bolt that your battery's negative is going. Elephant Rider, good point. Right there, any install is only as good as its installer, and I'm sure there's some horror stories out there about police cars dying and can't keep the batteries charged and uh, antennas killing each other and all of that. All right, Mikey. Good to know. Mikey says he's going to probably end up reinstalling his stuff or some new stuff on his 4Runner, and he's going to take notes about it when he does. Okay, fellas. You guys enjoy the rest of your Saturday night. Sorry I kept y'all up late, and I will talk to you guys later. I'm flying Wednesday to the East Coast, and I'll be on the road until January 3rd. So I will probably drop off the net. You guys probably are not going to see another live update until after the new year, unless I get some time somewhere. But happy holidays if I don't talk to you guys again. Be good. Stay safe. Okay.